Voromar Seafront Promenade, life on Illeta. In the marine zone, various ecological levels are distinguished from the shoreline to deeper waters. The supralittoral zone, which covers the permanently emerged sector, and is therefore under the influence of the maritime environment but exposed to the splashing of the waves. The organisms adapted to this habitat must cope with harsh living conditions, including water scarcity and high temperatures. Few species are found in this area, with mollusks and crustaceans being the most common. The mediolittoral zone corresponds to the sector that is intermittently submerged due to wave action or tidal changes. In this area, the first algae appear, along with a significant abundance of animal organisms. The presence of these organisms depends on their exposure to desiccation or immersion, so species typically found in areas more exposed to desiccation include limpets and some algae. Other species are found in areas subject to constant immersion due to the ebb and flow of the waves, such as numerous species of algae and animal organisms. These species are often highly sensitive to pollutants. In the pools of water formed in the mediolittoral zone, species typical of completely submerged areas, such as sea urchins or starfish, can be found. In the transitional zone between the mediolittoral and the infralittoral, the presence of vermets is particularly notable. These are organic formations made up of the calcareous tubes of the sessile colonial mollusk, which are primarily covered by the thalli of fouling red algae. They resemble rock formations, upon which other species settle. When these communities are impacted by pollution, these formations disappear, making them bioindicators that reflect the environmental health of the area. These structures, which can form vertical and horizontal platforms over 25 centimeters thick, are found only in the Balearic Islands and along the Iberian Peninsula's coasts between Alicante and Almeria. The infralittoral zone is constantly submerged and extends to the deepest boundary of the distribution of phanerogamy or light-dependent algae, a limit determined by insufficient light intensity. This zone has more stable environmental conditions than the supralittoral and mediolittoral, allowing for more diverse and abundant life. On well-lit rocky bottoms, protected from hydrodynamic forces, algae communities thrive. If the water transparency allows light to penetrate, they can extend deeper than 30 meters. This community is of such complexity and diversity that it can be compared to terrestrial plant strata, much like forest ecosystems. Pollution-induced degradation of this community leads to a loss of biodiversity and the progressive disappearance of algal layers, leaving only the more resilient species. In the rocky infralittoral zone, alongside the previously mentioned algae, the marine phanerogama Posidonia oceanica is also present. Another important community found in the infralittoral zone is the coralline habitat. This is a formation of calcareous algae that create habitats found on deeper rocky bottoms or in similar environmental conditions such as caves or shallow areas with limited light. Although not true corals, this habitat is referred to as coralline due to its resemblance to tropical coral reefs. Some coralline beds may have taken over 5,000 years to form. These communities are of great ecological value and are highly vulnerable, as the species that construct these habitats grow very slowly. The coralline algae habitat includes both animal and plant species that are capable of calcifying partially or entirely, such as gorgonians, sea fans, sponges, and bryozoans. Bottom trawling and the use of dredges in fisheries represent significant threats to these ecosystems. Environmental changes, such as climate change, also pose risks, as increased sea temperatures may affect the calcification rates of calcareous algae or cause high mortality in suspension feeder or filter feeding animals. The rise in recreational diving in certain areas also causes damage, particularly through accidental breakage of red and yellow gorgonians. The circulittoral zone, although not present near Illeta, begins at the lower limit of the infralittoral and extends to the continental slope. However, it must be noted that the extent of these zones and ecological levels varies depending on the type of coastline. El Campeo Tourism, collaborating with the Archaeological Museum of Alicante and the Institute of Coastal Ecology.